Hello, I am Rebecca Kreiderman, and today I will be interviewing my mom, Susan Kreiderman, who has worked as a nurse and a TA for various years, specifically with students with autism. So if you would like to introduce yourself to...
Yes. Again, as Rebecca said, I was working within the nursing profession for 18 years, and then following that, continued to work with the school board as an educational assistant, which entails working with students who have autism of various forms.
What would your everyday position look like? Like, what different tasks or functions would you carry out throughout the day to help support your students?
We usually followed a schedule, and because the autistic students are being immersed within the school program, then we would integrate them into the classroom setting. Whatever course subjects they would be assigned, we would take them class to class, and we would sit with them. We would support them in terms of helping them to feel comfortable in the class. If they had special needs during class time, you would ensure that they were looked after or that they were supported with those needs. And that could be difficult for them.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to feel like they fit in, and they were aware that they were different. And so you're really trying to help them feel like they fit into the class setting.
Do you think the feeling of wanting to fit in was one of your students' biggest struggles, or did they face any other struggles with that? Or
yes, definitely it was a large factor. At one time, autistic students would be separated from society. They would be institutionalized. So by incorporating them into society, they have to learn to adjust and adapt and get along with other students, and like I've said, fit into that setting.
do you believe that the issue is more so with students with autism trying to fit in, or more so maybe lack of accountability of schools to properly incorporate methods to support them and try and guide them to have those relations with others? And
I feel that the school definitely does a good job of encouraging other students to support, encourage the autistic students in the class, which is something we help with in relating with the regular students. Then we can help support that situation so that the regular students also learn about the autistic students and how they can also support them. But the school does a good job of integrating the students, but the biggest support in doing that is having the educational assistant, and we are able to liaison with the regular teachers, let the needs be known of our autistic students.
well, I do, from a story you did tell me, I think it was when you were working with Adam, and I think you mentioned that one of the teachers were trying to provoke or elicit like a meltdown from him. And I was just curious if that was like a common occurrence that people didn't understand what he was facing and they would just like try and provoke him unnecessarily, or was that just people not being educated enough on, autism and how it can affect people's emotions?
I think in any profession, you will find good and bad. So there were nurses, most of them were very professional, but there were situations where nurses were not, and usually they were disciplined. And that would be the same true within the educational system. That teachers who are not acting professional and or abusing students would be disciplined by the board, and it would be brought to their attention.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I did want to ask you as well, what strengths do you think go unnoticed by other people with students who have autism?
Well, they may, regular students might feel that their behaviors are unusual. For example, one of the students I worked with, Adam, would bounce up and down when he walked. When he sat still, he couldn't really sit still. He would also make vocal sounds that were unusual. So those are the types of things that a student might notice, as well as they usually may have a hard time controlling their behavior.
Thank you for sharing about that. I was just curious on what strengths did you notice that were prominent in your students, since I feel like there's a lot of focusing in society on, their setbacks or their obstacles. What strengths did you witness in your students?
A lot of them are very intelligent, and that might not be noticed by regular students, but they are usually very intelligent, and more so than the average person.
Yeah, it's just more so in their learning style or the way they communicate.
That's right.
Yeah. So, what do you wish other people knew about people who have autism, not just like students, but people with it overall?
Well, that they have a contribution to society, that they have many gifts and they can contribute in positive ways. When you identify what their strengths and their gifts are and direct them in that path. My student, one of them that I worked with for 5 years full-time, he did graduate from high school. He received his certificate in grade 12.
Was that Adam again? Or yeah. I think you mentioned to me before the interview you worked with him for 5 years. So I'm guessing you were very involved with like his family, his social life, his everyday activities. You got to saw more in depth how that was compared to like someone who just only worked with him for 1 year. You got to see his growth.
Absolutely. It was a joy to work with him. And again, including his family, because his mother, his father were very involved with, and his siblings wanting to encourage him. And so to have good communication and know when there are issues that need attention and letting me know so I could support them and him in those needs was helpful. And to Adam got to know me very well. I got to know him very well. So we were comfortable together, and it helped him in terms of his learning ability because he was comfortable.
It's almost like you're his rock in a way when you're with him for that long, helping and supporting him. It kind of helps him have a social support in a way because, like you said beforehand, that they do feel a little bit like they have to fit in. So having someone there for you through it all is a good type of support system.
Yeah, and I would use the word symbiotic in a way.
Symbiotic?
Because we were in sync
Like
with each
venom.
other. Yeah. We were in sync with each other like venom. That's a great analogy.
Yeah, where you do have to kind of, even though you can't see the type of communication that he has on the outside, you understood his communication methods and how he would show emotions compared to others. And I also wanted to ask, did you feel like or witnessed Adam or any of your other students feeling like they had to kind of conform to the role of a student or the role of a friend? Like, did you see any experiences where they felt discouraged with that?
Yes, they would often be lonely. They did make friends within their group because they would usually return to their homeroom class where they would be, the group of autistic students would have a homeroom with a homeroom teacher. So they had a base where they could feel safe and secure and where they had made friendships with one another.
Did you that is good that they did have a homeroom where the students can come back to and have like communication and connection and someone that kind of does understand what they're going through, even if it might not look to the same, not look, but be experienced in the same way on severity, nonverbal, verbal. It's just nice to know, I guess, for the students that like someone kind of understands what they're going through.
Definitely.
Do you think that there would be anything that could benefit students with autism in terms of like the school structure, like the bell system, lunches, time structures, anything like that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So for a student, for example, who has hearing sensitivity, they cannot stand to hear a loud bell ringing. They're sensitive to loud noises. So my student Adam, he used to wear headphones so that it wouldn't bother him as much, the sound. Lighting could be an issue if lights are too bright.
So a lot of sensory issues, I guess,
Yes.
with like, vision, hearing, even clothes maybe, I guess, could be more.
Clothing is definitely an issue. Like maybe a person doesn't like the feel of seams on their socks, or certain pants like jeans versus soft sweatpants. So sensitivities like that for sure.
Did was Adam nonverbal or was he verbal?
He was verbal.
Was he able to communicate his needs and wants, or was he?
Yes, he was pretty good at communicating what he needed. But if he became frustrated, then he would perhaps become angry. And so if he were angry, didn't help his circumstance, and he would become frustrated if he was trying to express himself and he wasn't understood. He would become angry or frustrated. So, for example, a teacher was struggling with the slide projector and he wanted to help, and he reached over to the computer, and the teacher did not appreciate that because she didn't want him touching the equipment, but he was trying to help. So he was very frustrated because she couldn't get it going and he wanted to help.
Yeah, it's just he wasn't able to communicate. He was trying to help instead.
Right, he impulsively went to the machine. And that's another issue. Impulsivity is another struggle with some.
Did you see a lot of your students struggle with impulsivity, or was it more just depending on the type of person they were?
I would say quite a few of them could.
I guess it's more so as a way to try and communicate compared to like maybe impulsivity in a way of that they're trying to. Well, thank you again for answering that. You mentioned that your, Adam, he had issues with potentially becoming angry or frustrated when he wasn't able to communicate. Did you experience him having any like meltdowns, and what was the cause of it if it did happen?
Oh yes, it could even be as simple as that he didn't get his way. So we try to provide structure and routine, and part of that incorporates discipline to do what you need to do, finish it, and then you can have a break and do something you want. But he loved being on the computer, and he was allowed computer time on lunch break for a certain period of time. But if he couldn't be on the computer when he wanted to be on the computer, that could be an issue. And then he might have a meltdown. Usually, because I know him, if I were there, I would usually be able to de-escalate. But de-escalate him. If a student is over the top and they've gone too far, then you would have to clear the classroom out, and so the other students weren't hurt or impacted. And we would have to then, we had a protocol where we worked together to de-escalate the situation.
Well, was there any steps that you guys took before it turned into a meltdown? Because
yes,
so
that's why my knowing Adam, I perceived, usually I knew what might precipitate, so I purposefully would do things to prevent escalation of a situation, because I knew him well. So that's the only time it was a problem, is if I were away or I was on a break and there may be other staff members who were in charge of being with him.
Yeah, so definitely.
Because they would maybe not have the foresight to see that.
So there were like little signs you could tell before he was about to get frustrated. That
usually.
What were those signs for him? Because I know it does vary depending on the type of student they are, the type of person they are. So what was Adam's signs specifically?
He would vocalize it, and he would grimace, and he'd get uptight and clench his fists and clench his teeth, And you knew then that, okay, he can't get his head around this, so he's getting ramped up. So then it's almost like a toddler where you go, distraction, or something that you can suggest to him as a bit of a reward for good behavior. So, okay, like you can't sit on the computer now, but if you do this now for me, then on your break, you'll get 15 minutes on the computer. But if he was too far gone, then it would be using another technique of distraction, like going for a walk was a big one. Taking them for walks, removing them from the class setting, going to a quieter area. They had sensory rooms where you could take the student and it would be quiet and dark with soft music, and they could go and be quiet and just de-escalate there.
Did it help them? Like, did
Definitely.
it help? So it's mainly just usually an overstimulation of their sensory that causes, like, not saying that's all the cases for frustration and anger, but could that, do you think, play a good portion into why they might get frustrated or have a hard time communicating?
Definitely. Overstimulation is definitely a factor.
And what type of methods did you use in your classroom to try and maybe help more with their executive functioning? So, like, how did you help them with their organization, their time management skills, any of those?
Very good question. Usually we would have a binder, and the assignments, I, as an EA, would keep them in the binder organized. I would have a copy and the student would have a copy. And so in terms of organizing the work they needed to do, if they weren't able to finish in the class setting, then we would work on it later together. So it was important that I knew what was being taught, what was required of them, so that I could support them later to finish the work. And often I would remove them from the class to a quieter setting to do some of the work too, because of overstimulation.
So on top of having a binder to schedule your day-to-day and what tasks they need to complete, was there any other methods that your school implemented to try and help them stay on task or focus? Like, did they have specific working stations where, each station has a different task that they have to do? Or did you have a visual schedule of, like, a day-to-day?
Excellent question. Yes, a lot of visuals for these students, and for some students they couldn't speak, so they would have to have a visual schedule to that we would point to. So it might say art, and you point to it, and then you give them the material that they're going to be using to make, and then it'll be like break, snack, and then it might be washroom, and then to the next activity. So visuals were used a lot to help students as well to follow.
Did you find it helped with your students to see that their day was organized, or did it make it easier when trying to, like, for say with Adam, when he wanted computer time, would you maybe suggest, like, hey, the schedule says math first and then you get your break to do computer time, or did you?
Yes, we do exactly what you said. Math first, computer after. So we do this first and then next this. Yes, is exactly.
Did it help them stay on task?
Absolutely,
Okay,
because they
good.
know there's a goal at the end. Yeah, there's going to be a reward per se. Yeah.
It's I think it's the operant conditioning, the positive reinforcement. I might have those terms mixed up. It's either classical or operant, but yeah, you reward a good behavior with like a candy or sticker or something they are looking forward to, or 15 minutes of computer time. And I think I only have a couple questions left. Did you notice that your students may have shown like compassion or care differently than their peers, and even like maybe sadness, happiness, any emotions differently than maybe someone who's neurotypical?
I would say generally they understood either verbally or visually what happy, sad, mad, and with using visual cues, like i.e. a happy face for happy, right?
Yeah.
To express themselves or to let you know, they would point to I am sad, if they couldn't verbalize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because I've seen a bit of a couple movies where they portray people who have autism as kind of heartless in a way, that they can't have a lot of emotions. And do you think that is the case with them, or do you think that's kind of been misconceptualized?
Generally, I would say yes, it's misconceptualized because we all are born with expression, but the ability to express would be less for some than others if they have, that they're nonverbal. It would be hard for them to express. If they're blind, if they are deaf, if, and you use your tools, but generally most of them would understand, or unless they're very low functioning, would understand the basic expression of emotion.
Well, yeah, they all had emotions. Like, they didn't just, they're not a robot. And yeah, everyone is programmed to have those emotions. Well, how would you help your students take on more initiative towards, relying more on themselves for structure instead of maybe coming to the EAs for help? Like, how did you teach them?
Encourage independence.
Yeah, encourage independence, yeah.
Yeah, and some would be able to be more independent than others.
Every case is different.
You would look at their ability and how they're going to do it, and can they, but you want them to be as independent as possible. So to provide those tools for them. So, for example, a word board might be another tool that they would use if, say, for example, they were nonverbal, and they could use a pen and tap on a symbol to tell you what they want to say. And if you knew they had the ability to do their work with tools independently, you would encourage them to do so as much as possible. And that is the reason why they try to integrate them into the classrooms, so that they can have some autonomy and feel like they're a part of the regular system. Another example of independence would be we established a school store. So the students would set up the store with products and a cash register and cash. These would be students who are of the ability to do that, but they would be allowed to receive the students from the regular school system to come and purchase candy or goods or whatever they were selling, and they would learn how to serve the customer, maybe wrap up something in a bag and give it to them. And then if they were able, they would learn how to handle money and give change and just serve the customer. We also had a program in our chefery course in the cafeteria, so the students could learn how to cook and how to prepare food and serve it.
Yeah, so that gives them a lot more independence when, they're learning these skills that may come easily for neurotypicals, but for those who have autism, they get to learn about how to cook food, how to have maybe small talk conversation more, how to organize and yet have responsibility with money, especially when you become an adult. Those are like very big things that you need to survive.
Life skills.
Yeah, life skills.
And so we did call it a life skills class. And so, for example, they might also work in the library, where they would put books on the shelf or take the cart around with books on it to different classrooms. Would be another example too.
Yeah, so they definitely they're able to learn. It's just they have their own specific way that they need to learn in. So the generic school system method doesn't really work for them. Like, you have to do, the reward system, the time management system, like the visual aids, the quiet rooms, and all of that can help them progress in their education and becoming an adult.
Your goal is to help them be successful, to be independent. We also had a co-op program where they went out to the community. So they would go and work in a restaurant, and it might be doing dishes, it might be learning to serve customers. They would go to a workplace where they had to put tools together. That would have been another type of placement. Working with senior citizens at the senior center. So they're trying to prepare them with performing life skills, so that when they graduate from high school, that they can be more independent and as they live in the community.
I think Adam graduated 5 years ago now, something. I don't know how long it's
It would be, it might be
Kyle.
about 8 years ago.
8 years, oh.
So he's living at home. He does have a job. I'm not sure what he is doing at this time, but he was working within the community in a type of a job, and had some independence, so he would bicycle there on his own, and he could come home and have his lunch and be independent on his own doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's definitely able now to, like you guys taught and helped him push towards having that independence, autonomy, and becoming more adjusted to adulthood than.
Yeah, and to feel a part of the community, but also to, in terms of independence, to be just that, to be able to make a meal for themselves, to be safe in the kitchen, to also know how to take care of themselves. So hygiene was another big part of their day. Going in and brushing their teeth, combing their hair, learning to take care of themselves.
Yeah, which I feel like a lot of people take for granted, how a lot of people can do those things, but for those who have have autism or may struggle with something else, it like a different type of disability, it is harder on their executive functioning, their hygiene, their communication skills, their even just everyday tasks. It definitely is a lot harder, but doesn't mean it's impossible for them. It's just they have to learn in their own way how to do all of that. And I think this will be my last question for the day. Before you started working with kids with autism, how did your view change from before till after? Like, was there anything you learned or made you change as a person after working alongside with them?
I would describe my experience in working with them as joyful. I really loved working with the students. It definitely, I wouldn't say it changed my view of them, because I knew from my nursing background some of their struggle, but I learned a lot about how we can help them integrate into society and some of the issues that they really struggle with, and just how we can do better in terms of that.
Did your mentality on anything change though? Like how
The
you
only
view...
one circumstance that I didn't really agree with in that environment was integrating violent students into that setting. So there were some violent students that couldn't be safe in the class setting. They couldn't even be safe in their class setting with their fellow students. So they had a one-on-one EA with them all the time, but they were very violent and a lot of people got hurt. And I did feel that it was not beneficial for them to be in that setting, that they need to be in a safe setting with people who are trained to
or
work with them,
yeah.
but defend themselves, because people got really hurt. Students, bus drivers, teachers, greater disabilities, and therefore would be better in a setting where they would be safe, but so would everyone else. And it just did not work well. I feel having them in a classroom setting, I feel it wasn't benefit for them.
Yeah, it was
Because they were so, I would say, debilitated, that, and
well, it's a big jump to going from not like having an adjustment period from like going from middle school to high school, different, people, different schedules, even like the class schedule every day in high school, it changes every 4 months. And some students might be able to adjust to that a bit easier, but then for others it might become more of a struggle.
it was also very hard for the family because they had to deal with violence.
Yeah.
And to live with that day in and day out was very hard for them. So the one student we had bit the chin off his grandfather.
That's
You
not
know?
good.
So it was very, very hard. It is very hard for the families to have them at home, depending on the degree and severity, and they need a lot of support to manage. And so they did.
Sorry. Did the families look into getting maybe a different kind of help, because maybe an EA might have not been enough support for that?
That's right, but there just isn't that within the board, within the schools. There would have to be something else offered, but within the school system, it wasn't set up for that. We were not set up to be, what would you say,
kind of more equipped, I guess.
like security or bodyguards. Like, we're there to help the student learn. But we had to be trained in self-defense, and we took classes together on that as well. So you had to learn how to take people down, how to hold them securely without getting hurt. And so it that aspect of it, I feel, is when it gets to that point that they just aren't safe to be within the school system.
They need a different method to support them, which is why I think like now they have a lot of different programs and systems now set up to try and help support those students who might face more difficulties. Like, we had the guest speaker come in, who was the behavioral analyst, and she was mentioning how she works at a place only specifically for those types of students who might be struggling more so than others and really need like an everyday support system and a guide to try and grow and handle their behaviors. Because if it's unsafe for other students, it's not really it's not a safe place for them, and they might not want to go to school. It can cause difficulties in their everyday lives, not just the students who have the autism.
When I graduated from nursing, those a lot of the medical and autistic kids and adults were institutionalized.
Yeah.
And then they closed the institutions and set them up in the community. So there is a place for them within the community, but just in particular with the violent situations, they need more support in a different kind of setting.
Yeah, because cutting them off from society or cutting them off from their support systems isn't really going to help them learn how to maybe regulate their emotions better, handle situations that might upset them. It just kind of avoids the issue altogether and ignores it, and it dismisses what that person's going through. Well, thank you for doing this interview. So, thanks, Mom.
You're very welcome, daughter.